Hey guys, we get to finish Swindle today. I'm so excited. There are only 2 chapters left, and that's it. So today you don't have any virtual thinking track, so there's no writing assignment to go with it. But I do need you to hop onto Flipgrid and leave me a review of the book. So tell me like what you thought about it, what you liked, what you didn't like. If you would want to read it again, if you would want to read more books by this author. Yeah, just go ahead and tell me all the things, all the details that you want to tell me and the rest of our classmates about this book. Okay, so we are going to read the last 2 chapters, and here we go. Chapter 31, 3 a.m. A black-clad figure opened the being's back door and stepped onto the patio. Uh-oh, you guys, this already sounds bad. I'm scared. Staying in the shadows, he made his way down the street, through yards, hopping fences, and squeezing through hedges. At the end of his block, he allowed himself the luxury of the sidewalk, but kept well away from the streetlights. The windows were dark, the roads deserted. He could see it now in the gloom, a quarter-mile up the avenue. Every day on the way to school, he had passed this spot and made a point of not looking at it. Not yet, not under the prying eyes of the police. But tonight, no one was watching. There was only Griffin Bing and, he hoped, George Herman Babe Ruth. Interesting. The debris was gone, but the stolen foundation of the old Rockford house glowed stark whitish gray in the moonlight. At the curb stood the only other part of the mansion that had escaped the wrecking ball, the mailbox, resting on its post. As he reached for the little door, Griffin observed his hand shaking. What if it isn't there? What if some sensible postal carrier had refused to deliver to a house that was obviously demolished? No, the flag's up. It's been up for 3 days. There's mail in here. My mail. He drew out the content of the box and stared. A free month of Netflix? Wait, there was another envelope. A smaller one, $1 million letter. He tore it open and dropped the Babe Ruth card into his hand. The floodlights were so sudden, so blinding that he was frozen in place like a butterfly on a pin. Detective Sergeant Vizzini stepped out of the glare and snatched the collectible from his hand. In that moment, Griffin understood that the eyes on the back of his neck had been real, after all. Vizzini spoke the words Griffin had been dreading for 6 days. You're under arrest. Oh, no. They didn't lock him in a cell. They didn't lock him up at all. He sat on a hard wooden chair in the middle of the squad room while Vizzini pounded out a report on a manual typewriter that must have been 100 years old. He knew he was in big trouble, though, because every single officer on the night shift came by to have a look at the kid who took down a house with an Ultratech alarm system and 2 guard dogs and made off with $1 million prize. Caught. Just the word made him shudder. In a plan like this, so many factors were at play, but caught was always rock bottom. The worst thing that could have happened had just happened. There was no counter move for this, no recovery. This was a major disaster. How many times had he told himself that it wasn't really stealing, that the card rightfully belonged to him? Here in the police station, he realized that argument wasn't going to work for 5 seconds. Griffin had always tried to stand up against adults pushing kids around, but now, under arrest, he had put himself more at the adults' mercy than ever before. What was next? Trial, conviction, juvenile detention? It could really go down that way. It was no joke. His one consolation was that he was sitting here alone and that Ben was not beside him, about to share his fate. Ditto Pitch, Savannah, Logan, Melissa, even Darren. He could not predict what the future might hold, but he prayed he would have the strength to follow through on his plan to take all the blame. Detective Sergeant Vizzini was still typing the same page. The man had to be the slowest typist on the planet. Each labored click was a jarring hammer blow to Griffin's raw nerves. How did I get myself into this? Griffin? Came a voice from behind him. Dad was a mess. Pajama top instead of a shirt, sweatpants, slippers, trench coat, bed hair. He had never looked better, not to Griffin. He ran into his father's arms, blubbering like a 2-year-old. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. It's okay, son. But it wasn't okay. It might never be okay. Vizzini pulled the sheet from the typewriter and placed it on the table in front of Griffin. Sign here at the bottom. Griffin backed away from the page like it was a live serpent. A confession? Worse? What does it say? Take it easy, the officer soothed. It's just a statement that you found the baseball card inside the old Rockford house. Griffin was bewildered. What do you need that for? There's a lady in Baltimore named Winifred Rockford Bates. She's 97 years old, and she's the last surviving member of the original Rockford family. The card is really hers, so it might be some consolation to you that your friend Palomino is out of luck. And what happens after I sign? Griffin quavered. Then we go home, Dad said gently. What? Go home? Was that even possible? Griffin wheeled to face the sergeant. Really? Vizzini looked stern. I hope you know how lucky you are. Mr. Palomino isn't going to press charges. He wants to avoid an investigation into whether he broke the law when he cheated you. And it's a pretty happy ending all around. Probably happier than you deserve. Thanks, officer. Thanks a lot. As he and his father walked to the car, Griffin took note of a slight bite in the early morning air, a hint of the coming winter, or maybe it was just the smell of freedom. He knew full well how close he had come to losing his. Mr. Bing pulled onto the road. Funny the way things worked out, he commented. Even if Palomino hadn't hoodwinked you into selling that card, it still wouldn't be yours. In the end, it would always have belonged to the little old lady in Baltimore. Griffin nodded, glum despite his relief. It would have been great, though. $1,000,000, hundreds of thousands anyway. His father sighed. Maybe it's a sign. Money isn't supposed to be easy. I don't care about easy money, Griffin mumbled. I just don't want to have to sell our house and move away. Mr. Bing jammed on the brakes, and the car screeched to a halt in the middle of the deserted street. We haven't even had a chance to tell you yet. Griffin was alarmed. Tell me what? All that publicity from the baseball card has generated a storm of interest in the smart pick. I've got investors who are going to back me through the whole process. Griffin stared at his father. You mean we're not selling the house anymore? We're going to be just fine. Oh, you guys, that makes me so happy. So there really is some good coming out of this for sure. Okay, chapter 32. Never thought I'd see you again. Logan Kellerman stepped onto the porch of 530 Park Avenue Extension and stood in front of the elderly man in the rocking chair. How are you, Mr. Mulroney? He asked, older and wiser. I now know that your sudden interest in backgammon was to keep me from noticing what was going on across the street. I have to admit it, I never took you for a burglar. Logan shuffled uncomfortably. I'm not. I'm an actor. Well, you must be a good one, Mulroney growled. You sure fooled me. I thought I had a friend. It wasn't all acting, Logan admitted, and when he got no reply, he took out the backgammon board and began to set it up on the rickety table between them. The retired miner eyed him suspiciously. Don't tell me. Palomino's got a set of silver candlesticks that you missed out on the first go-around? Logan pulled up a chair. What's the count? 17 to 14? Mulroney snorted. In your dreams, little man. You never won more than 12 games from me. Logan threw the dice. The comeback starts today. That's cute. I'm glad Logan went back to play with him, because I think Mr. Mulroney really liked having someone to hang out with and play games with, so I think that's nice. Miss Winifred Rockford Bates of Baltimore, Maryland, was an eccentric multimillionaire who thought Babe Ruth was a candy bar. She generously gave her 1920 baseball card to her youngest relative, Darren Vader of Cedarville, New York. What the heck? Did I just read that right? Did you guys just hear that? Okay, wait just a second. Let me reread that. Mrs. Winifred Rockford Bates of Baltimore, Maryland, was an eccentric multimillionaire who thought Babe Ruth was a candy bar, because Babe Ruth kind of is a candy bar. She generously gave her 1920 baseball card to her youngest relative, Darren Vader of Cedarville, New York. Griffin took it hard. I always believed that planning was everything, but no plan could ever insult you from a calamity like this. Oh man, I would be mad too if Darren got the card. How does that even happen? Like, that seems like such a small world. Darren kept saying he was related to the Rockfords, Ben reminded him. We didn't think he was telling the truth. There's a first time for everything, I guess, Griffin moaned. This is the end of the world. It was even less comfort when the card sold for $974,000, making it the second most valuable sports collectible in history. He won't get to enjoy 1 cent of it, Ben predicted in an effort to console his friend. His folks will make him put it in the bank for college or something. The reality was even better than that. Darren's parents didn't want their son to re-up the benefits of a robbery. They forced him to donate most of the money to the Cedarville Museum. The large gift put the building fund over the top and allowed construction to begin. As the bulldozers roared to life on one side of town, on the other, Palomino's Emporium of Collectibles and Memorabilia closed its doors for good. The store had never recovered from the scandal that its owner had cheated Griffin out of the Babe Ruth card. Wendell Palomino moved to California, leaving only one thing behind, his dog Luther, who was sent to the town pound. Oh, no, poor Luther. That is not cool. The Doberman spent less than an hour there before being adopted by Savannah Drysdale. It was a match made in heaven. Okay, that makes me happy. Everything's fine. Luther and Savannah get to be together, which is how it's supposed to be. I totally agree with that. I love that part. The Cedarville Museum opened on schedule the next summer on the site where the old Rockford house had once stood. The townspeople turned out in force for the dedication ceremony and toured the exhibits of artifacts from pioneer times and memorials to war heroes who had grown up in the area. What everybody knew, but no one was willing to admit, was that the most interesting thing that had ever happened in the sleepy little community was the great baseball card heist. That was why the biggest crowd lingered in front of a large framed photograph of 7 sixth graders. The plaque mentioned nothing about the famous robbery. It read, "Special thanks to Darren Vader, Logan Kellerman, Melissa Dukakis, Antonia Benson, Savannah Drysdale, Benjamin Slavic, and Griffin Bink for a job well done." The picture hung opposite a large window overlooking the building's adjoining skate park, which had been a condition of the museum's largest single donation. The idea for the park came from an old proposal that had been found in the file. Its author was one of the 7 in the photograph, the ringleader, the man with the plan. Okay, you guys, that is the end. So after all of that, they built a museum, but they still got their skate park that the whole thing was about originally. I don't know if you guys remember that, but at the beginning of the book, they were staying at the Rockford house because they wanted to prove to the adults that like their opinion mattered and that they should have listened to their skate park plan. But the skate park was still built. Luther got to be with Savannah. Darren got the money, which is not cool, but at least he had to give it up to build a museum. So that part's cool too. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts. Oh, and also Palomino had to close the store, which I also think is great because he's a crook. So anyway, I hope you love the book. Don't forget to do your flip grid and tell me what you thought. I can't wait to see those. And yeah, we're done. See ya.